The sun had already dipped below the horizon when the angler finally returned to the quiet edge of the water with a bucket of fresh bait swinging in his hand. For weeks, the fishing had been nothing but frustration, small fish nibbling and stealing the offerings, while the bigger ones stayed deep and uninterested. Tonight, something felt different. He set the bucket down and stared at the plain worms and minnows that had failed him so many times before. A small plastic bottle of garlic powder and a tiny vial of anise oil rested beside a container of coarse salt on the wooden bench. The idea had come from an old fisherman who swore that scent was everything. Fish lived in a world of smell far more than sight, and a strong trail could pull them from distances no ordinary bait could reach. With careful movements, he measured a generous tablespoon of garlic powder into a clean bowl, adding several drops of the sweet, pungent anise oil and a pinch of salt that would help the mixture cling and release slowly once underwater. He stirred everything into a fine paste, then poured in just enough water to create a light, sprayable liquid. The aroma that rose was powerful and strangely inviting, even to human senses. One by one, he lifted the bait pieces and misted them evenly, coating every surface until they glistened with the new scent. The treated bait looked almost the same, yet it now carried a secret weapon that would drift through the currents like an invisible call. He placed the bucket inside a sealed container and tucked it into the cooler, where the cool night air would let the flavors marry and intensify. As he closed the lid, he smiled, knowing that by morning, the ordinary bait would have transformed into something far more potent. The water would soon tell its own story, and he suspected that story would involve much larger shadows rising from the depths. The simple preparation had taken less than 5 minutes, yet it carried the promise of an entirely different day ahead.
He walked away from the shore with the quiet confidence that tonight's small effort would rewrite tomorrow's fishing tale completely. Dawn broke with a soft, golden light across the water as the angler returned carrying the same cooler, now heavy with expectation. He opened the lid, and the rich, combined scent of garlic and anise rolled out stronger than the night before, confirming that the overnight rest had done its work perfectly. The bait pieces had absorbed the mixture, turning each worm and minnow into a slow-releasing scent bomb, ready to broadcast its message through the underwater world. He rigged his lines with fresh hooks and carefully threaded the treated bait, making sure none of the powerful aroma was wasted. The first cast landed with a gentle splash, and he settled back to watch the line. Within minutes, the water around the bait began to show subtle signs of activity, small bubbles and faint swirls that ordinary bait rarely produced. Then came the first solid strike, a hard tug that nearly yanked the rod from his hands. He set the hook and felt immediate heavy resistance. Something much larger than the usual suspects was fighting on the other end. The battle lasted several thrilling minutes before a beautiful fish broke the surface, its size forcing him to reach for the net, only to realize the old one was suddenly far too small. He laughed out loud as he carefully maneuvered the prize into the larger backup net he had brought just in case. One after another, the bites kept coming, each fish noticeably bigger and more aggressive than anything he had caught in recent memory. The scent trail was working exactly as promised, spreading far and wide, drawing in the cautious giants that usually ignored standard offerings. By mid-morning, the stringer was filling rapidly, and the cooler began to look inadequate for the growing catch. Every time he rebaited the hook, the treated pieces seemed to glow with irresistible appeal underwater. The difference was undeniable. The same water, the same spot, yet the results had transformed overnight. He paused between casts to admire the healthy, lively fish in the net, each one a direct result of that simple treatment applied the evening before. The sun climbed higher, and the action never slowed, proving once again that patience and a little creative preparation could unlock fishing success that felt almost magical. As the day progressed, the angler found himself constantly adjusting his gear to handle the steady stream of strong fish that continued to hammer the scented bait. What had started as a hopeful experiment had become a full-blown frenzy, with every cast producing strikes that tested both his skill and his equipment. He watched in amazement as larger specimens cruised into the area, investigating the powerful aroma that lingered in the currents long after each piece of bait had been taken. The combination of garlic's sharp bite and anise's sweet licorice note created a unique underwater signature that fish simply could not resist. Even the most wary predators seemed compelled to investigate, and once they tasted the bait, they struck with surprising aggression.
Between fights, he reflected on how such a basic kitchen mixture could outperform expensive commercial attractants and fancy lures. The salt had helped the scent adhere to the bait, while also stimulating the fish's natural feeding response through electrolytes that mimicked injured prey. The overnight marinating process had allowed the flavors to penetrate deeply, ensuring a slow, steady release that kept working cast after cast. By afternoon, the net had been filled and emptied several times, each catch bigger than the last, until the angler finally had to admit he truly needed an even larger one to handle the next monster. The entire experience felt like a revelation about the underwater world where smell ruled supreme, and a well-prepared bait could turn an ordinary day into an unforgettable one. As evening approached, he packed up with a satisfied grin, knowing the secret was now his, to use again whenever the fish seemed uninterested. The simple ritual performed the night before had delivered far beyond expectations, proving that sometimes the smallest changes in preparation could lead to the most dramatic improvements in results. He looked forward to repeating the process many more times, confident that the combination of garlic, anise, and salt would continue delivering the kind of fishing days that made every angler dream of needing a bigger net. The following evening, the angler stood once more at the water's edge, with fresh bait and the same simple ingredients ready for another round of preparation. Word of his sudden success had begun to spread among fellow fishermen, yet he kept the exact method to himself, preferring to enjoy the quiet thrill of the transformation. He repeated the ritual with even greater care, measuring the garlic powder and anise oil with precision before blending them into a smooth, aromatic mixture that filled the air with its distinctive scent. This time, he experimented slightly increasing the salt content to see if it would extend the underwater release even further. The bait pieces were coated generously and allowed to rest inside the sealed container, where the cool night would work its subtle magic once again. As he worked, he thought about the invisible world beneath the surface, where every drop of the treated scent created expanding rings of attraction that traveled much farther than visual lures ever could. Fish relied on their highly developed sense of smell to locate food, especially in low light or murky conditions, and this enhanced bait acted like a powerful beacon, calling them from distant hiding spots. The preparation was so straightforward that anyone could do it, yet the results felt almost unfair to the ordinary angler who continued using plain, untreated offerings. He imagined the larger fish already beginning to stir in the depths, sensing the first faint traces of the new aroma drifting through their territory. By the time he finished, the bait looked identical to the night before, yet it now carried an intensified power that promised even greater action the next day. The stars appeared overhead as he closed the cooler, satisfied that the same simple steps would once more turn ordinary bait into something extraordinary. Sleep came easily that night, filled with anticipation of the battles that awaited at first light. The quiet confidence he felt was born not from luck, but from understanding that scent was the true language of the water, and he had learned to speak it fluently. Tomorrow, the fish would answer, and he suspected the answer would require an even larger net than before. The entire process had become almost meditative, a brief evening ceremony that consistently delivered remarkable rewards. Morning arrived with calm water and high expectations as the angler launched his first cast of the day with freshly treated bait. Almost immediately, the line went tight with a powerful strike that bent the rod deeply and sent the reel singing. He fought the fish carefully, feeling the weight and strength that confirmed another large specimen had fallen for the scented lure. When it finally surfaced, the size was impressive enough to demand the bigger net he had brought along. One fish after another followed in rapid succession, each battle more exciting than the last, as the enhanced aroma continued to draw aggressive predators from every direction. The difference in activity was staggering compared to previous days, when hours could pass with only occasional nibbles. Now, every few minutes brought another solid hit, and the stringer grew heavier with healthy, vigorous fish that fought hard from the moment they took the hook. He paused between catches to rebait, noticing how the treated pieces still released their potent scent even after multiple hours in the water. The combination of garlic and anise created a trail that lingered and spread, creating a concentrated feeding zone that fish could not ignore. Larger specimens that normally cruised past untouched bait now charged in with determination, swallowing the offering without hesitation. By midday, the action had become almost nonstop, forcing him to switch to stronger line and larger hooks to handle the increasing size of the catches. Each successful landing brought a surge of satisfaction, knowing that the previous night's simple preparation was the sole reason for this extraordinary day. The water seemed alive with movement, and the angler could only smile at how dramatically the same location had changed overnight. As the sun climbed higher, he realized he had already filled 2 coolers and was running out of space for more fish. The need for an even bigger net became obvious when a particularly massive strike nearly pulled him off balance. The entire experience felt like proof that understanding the underwater senses could unlock fishing potential that most anglers only dreamed about. As the afternoon light began to soften, the angler continued to experience the relentless action that had defined the entire day. Fish after impressive fish came to the net, each one a testament to the power of the overnight scent treatment. He had long since switched to the largest net available, yet even that struggled with the biggest specimens that kept appearing. The treated bait maintained its effectiveness, hour after hour, releasing its irresistible aroma in steady waves that kept the feeding frenzy alive. Reflections on the simple ingredients brought a sense of wonder at how such common kitchen items could outperform professional lures and expensive attractants.
The garlic provided a sharp, stimulating note, while the anise added a sweet, enticing quality, and the salt ensured the scent clung and dispersed gradually, creating a long-lasting trail. This combination mimicked the natural signals of injured or vulnerable prey, triggering the strongest feeding responses in the largest fish. By late afternoon, the stringer and coolers were overflowing, forcing him to release some of the smaller catches to make room for true trophies. Each battle brought new respect for the underwater world, where smell dictated behavior far more than sight or sound. The angler knew he had discovered something special, a reliable method that could be repeated whenever the fishing slowed down. As evening approached, he finally packed up his gear with a mixture of exhaustion and pure satisfaction. The bigger net had been tested to its limits, and the day had delivered far more than he had dared hope for, after weeks of disappointment. Walking away from the water, he carried the memory of powerful strikes and heavy fish that would fuel many future trips. The simple evening ritual of treating the bait had transformed his entire experience, proving that sometimes the smallest effort could produce the greatest rewards. He looked forward to sharing the basic technique with close friends, while keeping the exact proportions as his personal edge. The stars were beginning to appear as he loaded the last of his gear, confident that the secret of needing a bigger net would remain a cherished part of his fishing adventures for many seasons to come. The water grew still once more, but the memory of the day's action would linger long after the scent had finally faded.